Red Moscow Introduction. The Soviet army was defeated all the way, and the advancing German army gradually approached Moscow. Reborn as a Red Army Corporal Misha, the first battle in Moscow, bloody Stalingrad, Yanvykursk, and intimidating Ukraine. Under the Soviet red flag, engage in deadly battles against fascist aggressors. Chapter 1. Ximki Town. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Lin Hua was wearing a Soviet-style military uniform from the period of the Patriotic War, holding a bulletless Mosin-Nagant rifle in his hand. He stood in front of a shaky wooden door like a silly goose, staring blankly at the snow-covered buildings, forests, and pedestrians wearing thick winter clothes ahead. He clearly remembers that today is Victory Day, and he and several Russian friends, wearing Soviet military uniforms during the Patriotic War, were exploring a newly discovered underground bunker with bullets-free rifles they had obtained from the excavation party. Due to the dim light in the shelter and the many forks on the corridor, Lin Hua got separated from his friends while walking. He groped in the darkness for a long time, and finally saw a light shining through a partially covered door ahead. He quickened his pace and rushed to the door, forcefully pulling it open. I thought that as soon as I opened the door, I could see my scattered friends waiting for me outside the door. Unexpectedly, after opening the door, I found a scene of white snow in front of me. Although sporadic unmelted snow can still be seen in the forests of Russia in May, the snow scene in front of us only appears in November and February. Lin Hua turned around and walked into the door, wanting to return to the same passage as before, but found a half-collapsed room behind the door, with walls not covered by snow, and a black color formed by the smoke and fire. He wandered around the room for a long time, only to find no other passage except for the entrance where he came in. He came outside the door again, and in order to prevent himself from being frozen stiff by the piercing cold wind, he carried the gun on his shoulder, crossed his hands on his chest, and kept stomping his feet in place. Two young girls wearing deep blue military coats and cotton military hats passed by on the path ahead and saw Lin Hua's disheveled appearance. They stopped and pointed at him, seeming strange. In such cold weather, how could anyone stand outdoors wearing a single coat? Aren't they afraid of frostbite? Just as Lin Hua was pondering whether to walk up and ask the two girls what the place was, he suddenly heard someone shouting his Russian name loudly. Misha, Misha, where are you? I'm here. Upon hearing this shout, Lin Hua seemed to grab a life-saving straw and quickly shouted back. But when he turned his head to look in the direction where the sound came from, he saw a middle-aged man wearing a khaki short leather military coat and a cotton military hat, holding a pile of clothes in his hand, bouncing towards him in the snow. The person approached Lin Hua and frowned, saying, Misha, why did you come here? And you're wearing so little, aren't you afraid of freezing to death? He then draped a short leather military coat in his hand over Lin Hua's body. Lin Hua put on his military coat and suddenly felt his whole body start to warm up. He looked at the middle-aged man and asked, Who are you? Who am I? Who else can I be? I'm Xiaoliaosha. The other person heard Lin Hua's question and asked in a strange way, Can't you recognize me and still use you to refer to me? Lin Hua, who has been in Russia for over a decade, naturally knows that only friends or acquaintances use the term you instead of you. However, in order to understand his own situation, he ignores these details and continues to ask, Who am I? Where is this? Xiaoliaosha widened his eyes and stared at Lin Hua, saying, Misha, your full name is Mikhail Mihailovich Sokov, a sergeant in the rank of sergeant, and you are our squad leader. Our current location is in the town of Ximki, just north of Moscow. Our squad has been tasked with defending this town to prevent German spies from infiltrating and causing damage. The combination of the words Red Army Corporal, Ximki, and German spy made Lin Hua's heart skip a beat, secretly saying, Did I go back to the Soviet Union during the Patriotic War? He quickly asked, Xiaoliaosha, what time is it now? Xiaoliaosha took out a pocket watch from his pocket and glanced at it, then replied, At November 40, noon. I want to ask which year and day today is, Lin Hua said impatiently. On December 1, 1941, Xiaoliaosha said to Lin Hua in a concerned tone after answering, Misha, you should take some time to go to the military hospital to see a doctor. Go to the military hospital? Lin Hua asked inexplicably, why do I have to go to the military hospital? In yesterday's bombing, your head was shaken. Xiaoliaosha shook his head and said, your consciousness has become blurred. Not only do you not remember the time and where we are, but you even forget who you are. Lin Hua had no intention of paying attention to what Xiaoliaosha had said, but instead thought in despair. On December 1, 1941, during the Moscow Defense War, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, a reconnaissance squadron of the German 258th Division entered and occupied Ximki, which was only 20 kilometers away from Red Square, by motorcycle. If you wait for the Germans to arrive, you may not even be able to save your life. It's better to run away as soon as possible. But he quickly dispelled this idea. Even if he had just arrived, he had nowhere to go, even if he had left Ximki town. Moreover, there are checkpoints everywhere, and once caught, one will be shot on the spot as a deserter. Since running away is death, staying is also death. It's better to use one's own knowledge of the history of the German family entering the town of Ximki in a few hours, prepare for battle in advance, and catch the Germans off guard. With this in mind, he immediately instructed Xiaoliaosha, immediately gather all the comrades in the class to the north of the town and prepare them for battle. Considering that it would be difficult to block the German reconnaissance team with just one squad, and that militia assistance was necessary, he asked Xiaoliaosha, where is the town leader? Xiaoliaosha asked tentatively, are you referring to the People's Commissar of the town Soviet? Yes, it's him. Lin Hua nodded hard and asked anxiously, do you know where he is? Xiaoliaosha thought for a moment and replied, before I came here to find you, I saw Comrade Town People's Commissar go to the police station. You should be able to find him there. I'll go find him now, Lin Hua said, carrying a gun and running forward. But after running a few steps, he stopped and turned his head to look at Xiaoliaosha, who was still standing in place. He felt a bit embarrassed and asked, Xiaoliaosha, where is the town police station? Upon hearing Lin Hua's question, Xiaoliaosha's facial muscles twitched violently a few times before reaching out and pointing to the front right, saying, Misha, you can walk east along this road and find the police station to the east of the town. I think Comrade People's Commissar may be having lunch with the director of the police station. Chapter 2. Warning. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ximki is a small town, and the people in the town have either been evacuated or gone to the front line. There were not many people walking around the town, but Lin Hua finally found the town police station under the guidance of an old lady. At the entrance of the police station, there is a police officer walking back and forth wearing a rifle. Seeing Lin Hua walking over, he stopped and took the initiative to extend his hand to Lin Hua, smiling and saying, Misha, are you here to find the director? Seeing the police officer on duty recognize him, Lin Hua's face showed a surprised expression, thinking to himself that Xiaoliaosha had just mistaken him for Misha. Now this police officer also calls himself Misha. Does he look so similar to the Misha they know? But at this moment, he was eager to find the town committee member and request the other party to send militia to strengthen the defense in the north, without even considering why others would consider his previous Misha incident. He asked directly, Comrade Police Officer, is the director there? He's here, the police officer nodded a few times and said, he's in his office, having dinner with comrades from the town committee. Lin Hua opened the wooden door and walked in. At the end of the long corridor, there was an office with an open door. Based on his experience, that should be the director's office. Just as he was about to take a step forward, he suddenly saw a rectangular mirror hanging on the left wall. He quickly leaned over to figure out his current image. Unexpectedly, he saw a stranger in the mirror, a young man wearing a khaki short leather military coat, without a hat, with short golden hair and a slightly thin face. Based on his facial features, he could tell at a glance that he was a real Russian. Oh my goodness, Lin Hua was startled when he saw his dignified face and said to himself, how did I become a Russian? What's going on? He stood in front of the mirror for a moment, lost in thought, and suddenly remembered his purpose of coming here. In a few hours, the Germans would break into the town of Ximki. If preparations were not made soon, not only would the team he commanded be completely destroyed, but even the remaining residents of the town would suffer. Thinking of this, he quickly walked towards the director's office ahead. The position of the director's office by the window is lit with a stove, making the whole room look warm and cozy. A police officer sat on a bench on the left side of the door, dozing off with his head down. When he heard footsteps, he looked up and saw that the person coming was Misha. After nodding at him, he continued to lower his head and close his eyes to rest. Lin Hua saw two middle-aged people wearing military coats sitting at a desk by the wall, eating. The table was filled with bread slices, pickled cucumbers, pickled tomatoes, and even 2 steaming cups of black tea. Lin Hua didn't know who the town people's committee member he was looking for, so he quickly raised his hand to his forehead, saluted them, and politely asked, "May I ask which comrade is the town people's committee member?" Upon hearing Lin Hua's voice, the middle-aged man with his back to the door turned around and saw clearly that the person standing behind him was Lin Hua. He stood up with a smile and said, "So it's Comrade Misha. Did you have lunch? How about we have some together?" As soon as the other party stood up, Lin Hua could see clearly the rank of lieutenant on their collar. He guessed that the other party might be the director of the police station and respectfully said, "Thank you, Comrade Director. I haven't eaten yet, but I have an urgent matter to consult with the town committee." The middle-aged man sitting facing the door put the cucumber he had bitten halfway into his mouth, chewed it a few times and swallowed it. He looked at Lin Hua and asked, "Corporal Comrade, I am the town committee member Kochetov. Do you have anything to do?" Lin Hua quickly took 2 steps forward and said to Kochetov, "Comrade People's Commissar, according to intelligence, a small German army unit is advancing towards Ximki, and it is estimated that it will not be long before it arrives here. I hope you can mobilize nearby militia to strengthen the defense north of the town." Before Lin Hua could finish speaking, Kochetov began to train him head-on, "Corporal Comrade, do you know what you're talking about? The Germans will break into Ximki in a few hours." "Nonsense, it's just nonsense. I don't care where you got this intelligence from, but I want to remind you. Ahead of us is the 16th Army commanded by General Rokossovsky. Even if they sacrifice their lives, they will never take a step back." "But what are you saying? There are Germans who want to break through their defenses, break into the town of Ximki in the suburbs of Moscow, and break into the heart of the Soviet motherland. To put it nicely, this is a ridiculous idea. To put it bluntly, this is a manifestation of defeatism after the blizzard in Kochetov." Lin Hua gritted his head and said, "Comrade Town People's Commissar, it is entirely possible for the enemy to bypass our army's defense line and come here. I think it is necessary to dispatch militia to strengthen the defense to the north of the town." Upon hearing Lin Hua's words, Kochetov was furious. He pointed at Lin Hua and shouted, "Who do you think you are? Are you a general or a marshal? You can actually predict the next move of the German army, thinking that they will break into this small town of Ximki. I think I need to immediately call your superiors and ask them to transfer you to the most intense place of the battle, face to face with the Germans, and you won't be so daydreaming all day." Lin Hua saw Kochetov's stubbornness and knew that there was no point in persuading him further. He decided to leave immediately and rush to the north of the town to set up defenses. He straightened his body and asked Kochetov, "Comrade Town People's Commissar, is it allowed for me to leave?" At this moment, Kochetov was eager for Lin Hua to leave. When he offered to leave, he waved his hand, indicating that Lin Hua could leave. Lin Hua raised his hand and saluted Kochetov and the director, then turned around and prepared to leave the office. "Wait, Misha." Lin Hua was about to leave the office when he was stopped by the director. Lin Hua stopped and turned his head to look at the police lieutenant, unsure of what he was going to say to himself. UU reading www.uukangshu.net. The director pointed to his head and said kindly to Lin Hua, Misha, the weather is cold. Don't forget to wear a hat when going out. It's better to blow a cold wind, it will give you a headache. For the director's concern, Lin Hua nodded gratefully, then raised his hand to salute the other party, and walked out of the director's office with big steps. Lin Hua came to the north of the town and met his group of subordinates here. There are 10 people in the class, including myself. The first and second machine gunners are both named Zadulin, and the 2 are brothers. Among the remaining 6 individuals, there are 2 submachine gunners, and the weapons used by the remaining individuals are the same as themselves and Xiaoliaosha, all of which are Mosin-Lagan rifles. Xiaoliaosha whispered to Lin Hua, Misha, what did Comrade Town People's Commissar say? Lin Hua shook his head and said with a bitter smile, he didn't believe the Germans would rush to the town of Ximki, and he even scolded me. Xiaoliaosha had long guessed that Lin Hua would run into a wall. After all, the troops had been stationed here for over a month, and apart from being bombed a few times, he didn't even see any trace of the Germans. Moreover, there was the main force of the 16th Army Group ahead, so how could the enemy possibly rush into the town? However, in order to save face for Misha, he politely asked, Misha, what should we do? Lin Hua was thinking in his heart that although the Soviet army had been continuously retreating since the outbreak of war, and the German army had reached the outskirts of Moscow, most people did not believe that the German army had the ability to charge into Moscow, so they lacked the necessary vigilance. This can be seen from the reaction of the town committee member Kochetov. Since we cannot receive external support, we can only rely on our existing strength to block those German troops attempting to break into Ximki. Thinking of this, Lin Hua said to Xiaoliaosha, order the soldiers to enter their respective combat positions and prepare for battle. Chapter 3. The sound of gunfire outside the town. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The designated interception position by Lin Hua is a 2-story brick and concrete building, with machine guns mounted on the window of the second floor. The firepower can block the road into the town. Moreover, 5 or 6 meters away in front of the small building, there is a trench more than half a person deep. This is the fortification that the residents of the town excavated in response to the call of their superiors after the outbreak of war. Before the troops entered the defensive position, Lin Hua decided to conduct a pre-war mobilization for everyone. After waiting for 9 soldiers to stand in front of him, Lin Hua took a deep breath and loudly said, Comrades, I am giving you the battle order now. The enemy's strength is unknown, they are riding motorcycles, bypassing the defense line of the 16th Army Group, moving towards Ximki town, hoping to turn this into their starting point for attack. There are 10 people on our side, and the task is to stay here and prevent the enemy from charging into the town. Comrade Class Monitor, Lin Hua said as soon as he finished speaking. A soldier standing in the middle of the line with a submachine gun opened his mouth and asked, will the Germans really charge towards us? According to the information Lin Hua learned from Xiaoliaosha, he recognized the soldier speaking as Christopher, from General Chernyshov's 18th Militia Division, which had been renamed as the 11th Guards Infantry Division. Unfortunately, Christopher left this hero's unit as early as August due to being injured in the battle. After recovering from his injuries and being discharged, he was assigned to the Moscow garrison and became a soldier in his class. Christopher's question is also the question of all warriors, and everyone's attention is focused on Lin Hua, hoping to get a definite answer from him. Yes, comrades. Lin Hua couldn't tell the soldiers how he knew the Germans would bypass the defense line and reach the town of Ximki. He could only vaguely say, the Germans will rush here. And our task is to firmly block them and not retreat a step. Do you understand? Understood, the soldiers answered in unison. Looking at the serious faces of the soldiers, Lin Hua coughed heavily, cleared his throat, and began giving orders. Brother Zadulin, you have set up machine guns at the window on the second floor and blocked the road ahead of us with firepower. The rest of us, follow me into the trench, and we will intercept the enemy here. As the order was issued, the soldiers entered their respective combat positions and lay motionless, staring ahead. Xiaoliaosha asked Lin Hua in a low voice, "Misha, are the Germans really coming back? The weather is so cold, if the soldiers lie here for a few hours, they might get frostbite." Lin Hua did not immediately answer his question, but instead asked, "What time is it?" Xiaoliaosha took out his pocket watch again and answered, "It's 2:40.5 minutes. In 15 minutes, the Germans will appear." At the thought of this, Lin Hua's breathing became rapid. He quickly took a deep breath, stabilized his emotions, and said to Xiaoliaosha, "Tell the Zidulin brothers to pay attention to the surrounding environment, and report any situation immediately." Xiaoliaosha nodded and stood up, shouting to the Zidulin brothers upstairs, "Hey, Misha asked you two to pay attention and report any situation as soon as you find it." As time passed by minute by second, Lin Hua's heart was beating faster and faster. He was worried that his knowledge of history might have deviated. The Germans arrived in the town of Ximki not at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, and they had never even been there. In either case, if the soldiers were frozen in the snow for several hours but the Germans did not show up, their reputation in the class would be affected in the future. Just as Lin Hua was suffering from illness, he suddenly heard Zidulin upstairs shouting, "Corporal, there are several motorcycles coming towards us from afar." Lin Hua quickly stood up from the trench and looked towards the road ahead. Sure enough, he saw several black spots like beetles moving in his direction. He turned his head and loudly asked upstairs, "Zidulin, can you see clearly whether it's his own person or a German person in the car?" Sitting at the window on the second floor, the machine gunner Zidulin heard Lin Hua's question and quickly narrowed his eyes, trying to look towards the motorcycle approaching in the distance. However, besides being able to see clearly that the other person was wearing a white camouflage suit, it was impossible to see whether it was his own person or the enemy. He turned his head and asked his younger brother, "Can you see clearly?" Assistant marksman Zidulin shook his head when he heard his brother's question and said with a bitter smile, "It's too far, I can't see clearly." Machine gunner Zidulin leaned out half of the window and shouted to Lin Hua below, "Corporal, it's too far away for us to see clearly." Upon hearing Zidulin's answer, Han Zhan thought painfully, if there were a telescope, the Zidulin brothers on the second floor could see clearly whether they were their own people or Germans. "Germans, it's Germans," shouted the deputy shooter Zidulin, who shouted at the top of his lungs, "I saw their MG-34 machine guns mounted on sidewalks." Seeing that the Germans arrived as scheduled, Lin Hua raised his voice and shouted, "Combat alert. Everyone listen to my command and immediately prepare for all battles." Xiaoliaosha looked at the motorcycle getting closer and closer in the distance and murmured, "Oh my God, the Germans have really come." Lin Hua lay in the trench, aiming his gun at the German motorcycle and saying to Xiaoliaosha beside him, "Spread it down, no one is allowed to shoot without my command." Although he had already said hello, to prevent exposing the target, no one was allowed to shoot until he received his command. He was too nervous at the moment and couldn't help repeating the command to keep himself calm. 1, 2, 3. Xiaoliaosha counted the number of German motorcycles in a low voice after delivering the order. 7, 8. Misha, the Germans have 8 motorcycles, each with 3 people, a total of 20.4 people, twice as many as us. Can we stop them? After understanding the accurate number of German soldiers, Lin Hua's face changed. He quickly called for a soldier and said, "Hurry to the police station immediately, go find the director and the people's commissar of the Soviet town, and tell them that there are more than 20 Germans riding motorcycles towards the town. Please send the militia to support us as soon as possible." The soldier agreed, carried his gun out of the trench, and rushed towards the town with his legs drawn. Xiaoliaosha looked at the back of the soldier and said with mixed emotions, "I hope the militia of the instrument factory can arrive here as soon as possible, otherwise we will be all done." Dealing with 20.4 armed Germans with 9 people is almost an impossible task. That's right, the enemy is stronger than us. Regarding Xiaoliaosha's statement, Lin Hua nodded and said, it's impossible to stop them solely based on our strength, but it's also impossible not to stop them. Because behind us are Red Square and the Kremlin, and we have no way back. The battle we are fighting here is to buy precious time for the arrival of the militia forces. Due to the snow on the road, the German motorcycles drove very slowly. It took them 7 or 8 minutes before they reached a distance of 100 meters from the blocking position. Lin Hua had previously played with a group of military enthusiasts with the Maxinlagan rifle, so he was very familiar with this weapon. He used a sight to lock the machine gunner sitting in the first motorcycle sidecar, held his breath, and pulled the trigger. The German machine gunner sitting in the sidearm shook his body and a snowflake bloomed on his left chest. Under the tremendous inertia of the bullet, his body leaned back and then sat crooked in the sidearm. The sound of gunfire was an order to intercept 2 submachine guns, 5 rifles, and machine guns on the second floor of the position, while firing at the German motorcycle convoy. The motorcycle rider on the first motorcycle was immediately riddled with a random gun, and the out-of-control motorcycle crashed into a nearby snowdrift. Before the surviving German soldiers could find a place to hide, they were shot several times and fell into the snow with their hands covering their chest. Although the sudden shooting by the Soviet army eliminated the German soldiers on the first motorcycle and even killed a few of the German soldiers on the back motorcycle, most of the German soldiers hid behind the motorcycle or snowdrift and began to counterattack. The sound of gunfire from the north of the town alarmed Kochetov at the police station. He suddenly stood up and looked out through the window, frowning and asking, "What's going on, where is the gun fired?" The director walked up to him and looked in the direction of the gunshot, but due to the obstruction of the building, he couldn't see anything. He could only call the police officer sitting in the room and tell him, "Go out immediately and see what's going on over there." Before the police could leave, the soldiers sent by Lin Hua to report the news rushed into the director's office, panting heavily. He said to the director out of breath, "Comrade Lieutenant, we have found Germans to the north of the town where we were smashing." The words of the warrior shocked both the director and Kochetov. "What, Germans?" After taking a few breaths, the soldier gestured and said, 24 of them came by motorcycle." "Damn it, what's going on here?" Kochetov shouted at the warrior after listening to it, "Where did the Germans come from?" Kochetov's cannibalistic expression frightened the warrior. Fortunately, the director promptly surrounded the soldiers and said, "Comrade soldier, I heard a dense gunfire coming from the north of the town. Is someone fighting against the Germans?" "Yes, Comrade Lieutenant." The soldier nodded and said, "It's our squad leader, Corporal Misha, with all the soldiers in the squad, who is blocking the Germans. But there are more Germans than us, so Comrade Corporal sent me to seek your help." "Misha, does this name sound familiar?" Kochetov frowned and asked the director, "I think I've heard it somewhere before." Upon hearing Kochetov's words, the director gave a bitter smile and said, "Comrade People's Commissar, have you forgotten that while we were eating, a corporal came here and said that Germans were rushing to the town of Ximki. He requested that you send militia to strengthen the defense in that direction." Upon being reminded by the director, Kochetov suddenly heard who Misha was. So it's him. However, he quickly raised his own question, how did he know that the Germans would rush to the town of Ximki today? Comrade People's Commissar, the director also had doubts about Misha's foresight, but when he heard the dense gunfire coming from outside, he didn't consider delving deeper into the matter and quickly urged Kochetov, "Misha and his team are small, so they may not be able to stop the German attack. I think we should immediately call the instrument factory and ask them to send militia to support us." Kochetov nodded and walked to the table. He grabbed the handle of the phone and shook it vigorously to continue. He picked up the microphone and pressed it to his ear. When he heard the voice of an operator inside, he immediately shouted, "I am Kochetov, the Soviet commissar of the town. Please connect me to the instrument factory and find their military representative." Chapter 4. Victory in the First Battle. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The German army attacking the town of Ximki was under the reconnaissance battalion of the 258th Infantry Division, and they were all experienced veterans with rich combat experience. They were unexpectedly hit without any precautions, and 5 or 6 soldiers were killed on the spot. After a brief panic, the remaining soldiers returned to normal, firing several machine guns at Soviet positions to suppress their firepower. At the same time, soldiers holding submachine guns approached the Soviet position with caution and decisiveness, using the cover of the snowdrifts on the roadside with a cat waist. Bullets flying recklessly splattered mud and snow at the edge of the trench. Lin Hua held a rifle and curled up in the trench, listening to the sound of bullets whizzing over his head. He trembled uncontrollably like a sieve. Fortunately, the soldiers were all too busy at the moment, and no one noticed his awkward appearance. When Lin Hua shot and killed a German soldier, he thought that war was not enough, but he didn't expect that after the gun was fired, there would be no more achievements. On the contrary, the German soldiers had a fierce firepower, with 3 or 4 machine guns and more than 10 submachine guns firing at the same time, making the soldiers in the trenches dare not stand up. As soon as the famous soldier raised his head, before he could shoot, he was shot several times in the head without even shouting, and then fell into the trench on his back. Lin Hua looked up at the window on the second floor, hoping that the machine guns of the Zidulin brothers could suppress the German firepower. But he understood in his heart that this was just wishful thinking. From the beginning of the German counterattack, a machine gun specifically suppressed the Zidulin brothers, making it impossible for them to shoot from the window. A German soldier rushed to a distance of only 20 meters from the trench, hid behind a snowdrift, and threw a grenade in an attempt to kill all the Soviet soldiers in the trench. But due to his excessive force, the grenade flew over the trench and exploded on the open space behind it. The air waves raised the soil on the ground and scattered it into the trench. The slightly scorching soil fell on Lin Hua's body, making him ponder his situation hard. Hiding in the trenches was just a temporary measure. Once the Germans rushed forward, he would not have been shot to death by random bullets, but would have been killed by grenades. Instead of waiting to die, it was better to give it a chance. Xiao Yaosha beside Lin Hua is a veteran with rich combat experience. He uses his senses and listens to the sound of bullets passing around to determine the position of the German army. He grabs the moment when the bullets extend and slightly leans forward to lift his hand based on his senses. Regardless of whether he hits or not, he immediately retracts and lies down. Lin Hua saw Xiao Yaosha's skillful shooting, so he leaned out and pulled the trigger towards the swaying figure in front of the trench. After shooting, he didn't even care whether he hit or not. He quickly withdrew his body, squatted in the trench, pulled the bolt, pushed out the shell, took a deep breath, and then leaned forward to shoot again. A German soldier who had just rushed out from behind a snowdrift was accidentally hit by a bullet fired by Lin Hua. He stumbled as if he had been tripped by something, stopped in place for a moment, and then collapsed softly. Another German soldier, seeing his companion lying in a pool of blood, quickly took out a hand grenade and specifically blew up all the Soviet troops in the trench. Unexpectedly, as soon as he pulled the string, before he could throw it, Christopher leaned out and fired a shot with his submachine gun in his hand. The German soldier covered his chest, collapsed in pain on his face, and a grenade landed at his feet, exploding with a loud bang, leaving him covered in flesh and blood. Although the German army had an advantage in both numbers and weapons, it was not an easy task to quickly occupy positions in the face of the difficult Soviet army in front of them. The German commander was particularly anxious when he saw this situation. He originally intended to take advantage of the lack of defense of the Soviet army and rush into the town of Ximki, but unexpectedly, a Soviet army unit was ambushed on their inevitable path in advance. If the battle is dragged on for too long, it won't be so easy for them to escape when the Soviet reinforcements arrive. Although the German army was unable to advance, Lin Hua and the others fought exceptionally hard. The Zidulin brothers on the second floor had already sacrificed themselves, and there were only 3 people left in the trench, Lin Hua, Xiao Yaosha, and Christopher. The difficulty of blocking a dozen armed enemies with 2 rifles and 1 submachine gun is unimaginable. After firing another shot into the trench, Xiaoliaosha squatted down to load the ammunition and anxiously said to Lin Hua, "Misha, we only have 3 people, while the Germans have more than 10. It's impossible to stop them. Do you think we should retreat?" "We cannot retreat." Lin Hua unequivocally denied Xiaoliaosha's proposal. "As soon as we retreat, the Germans will rush into the town. You should know that there is no preparation in the town. Once the enemy is firmly established, there will be continuous enemies entering the town from afar, and this will be used as the starting point for attacking Red Square and the Kremlin. We absolutely cannot let this happen. Do you understand?" Upon hearing Lin Hua's words, Xiaoliaosha let out a long sigh, then leaned out and fired a shot towards the outside, then withdrew his body and said to Lin Hua, "Misha, I understand. If Germans want to rush into town, they can only step on our bodies. This is our burial ground." Lin Hua just nodded, but before he could speak, Christopher next to him suddenly let out a low shout, "No, I'm out of bullets." Xiaoliaosha also smiled bitterly and said, "I only have 1 clip of ammunition left." Collect ammunition from sacrificial comrades. Lin Hua knew he didn't have many bullets left and hurriedly said to the 2, "We need to hold the enemy as long as possible so that the people in the town can have time to prepare." 7 or 8 minutes later, Lin Hua and the 3 of them ran out of bullets, and the sound of gunfire in the trench stopped. Seeing that there was suddenly no movement on the Soviet front, the shrewd German commander immediately realized that the Soviet army had no bullets left and quickly shouted to his subordinates, "Russians don't have bullets, let me have them all." Xiaoliaosha, who was squatting in the trench, saw those who had their gun butts pressed against their waist and walked towards the trench with their cats on their backs. He calmly put the bayonet on his rifle and turned to Lin Hua with a smile, saying, "Misha, you reading www.uukangshu.net. Although we have run out of bullets, we can still fight the Germans with the bayonet. We must not live to be prisoners." Just as Lin Hua was installing the bayonet, Christopher also threw away the submachine gun with no bullets in his hand and picked up a rifle left by a sacrificial comrade. After fixing the bayonet, he turned his head to Lin Hua and said, "Corporal, it looks like we're all going to die here today." At this point in the battle, the fear in Lin Hua's heart had already dissipated. He held a rifle with a bayonet and stood up straight, facing the German soldiers who were approaching. He said arrogantly, "Even if we die, we need to pull more cushions." Xiaoliaosha and Christopher also stood up straight, staring at the Germans in front of them, and loudly said, "That's right, even if we're going to die, we'll have to put on a few cushions." However, the scene of Lin Hua's imagined bayonet fight did not occur. Suddenly, a dense gunshot echoed behind them, and several German soldiers, who were only a few steps away from them, fell to the ground one after another. "What's going on?" Lin Hua turned his head in surprise and saw a group of militiamen wearing civilian clothes and holding weapons shouting, "Ula!" They rushed out from around the building and charged towards the German soldiers who were staying in the trenches. At the forefront was a police lieutenant, holding a Jegerev machine gun and shooting towards the German army. Seeing the swarming militia in the town, the German soldiers dared not stop and turned around to run towards the parking spot of motorcycles, attempting to board and escape. But the militia refused to let them go and chased after them like shadows. The police lieutenant jumped into the trench and slapped Lin Hua heavily on the shoulder, praising him, saying, "Good job, Misha, are you all okay? You're really amazing." After that, he climbed out of the trench and continued to pursue with the militia. Chapter 5. Continuously upgrading to Level 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The remaining German army fled to the place where their motorcycles were parked, wanting to board and escape, but there was no time. Before they could turn the motorcycles around, the tide of militia soldiers had already surrounded them tightly. Faced with the dark muzzle around, German soldiers hurriedly threw away their weapons and raised their hands high. Lin Hua and the 3 of them did not participate in the pursuit. Xiaoliaosha took out a pack of cigarettes from his pocket, pulled out one, and handed it to Lin Hua. After being rejected, he handed it to Christopher. As the two of them were swallowing clouds and puffing mist, Lin Hua's gaze crossed their heads and looked at the militiamen who were escorting prisoners back and busy cleaning the battlefield. He thought to himself, if Comrade Kochetov, the People's Commissar of the Soviet, could trust me and bring the militiamen over early to set up defenses, the soldiers in the squad would not be completely injured or killed. Hello, comrades. Suddenly, a beautiful female voice came from above. You haven't been injured, have you? The three of them looked up and saw a young female health worker wearing a short leather military coat and carrying a medical bag. She was of medium height, with an oval face and delicate facial features that made people unwilling to take their eyes away at first glance. Seeing all three of them staring blankly at her, the female health worker chuckled and crouched down, jumping into the trench to prepare for Lin Hua's examination. Lin Hua quickly waved his hand at her and said with a smile, "Thank you, Comrade Health Officer. I'm not injured." He nuzzled at Christopher next to him. "My soldier seems to be injured." "That's right, Comrade Health Worker." Christopher threw the cigarette he had just taken 2 puffs on the ground, crushed it with his toes, and playfully said to the female health worker, "I just got shot in the arm. Can you help me check if it's going to be disabled?" I heard that Christopher was shot in the arm and saw a piece of blood stained brown on his left sleeve. I quickly helped him untie his military coat. After seeing Christopher's injury clearly, the female health worker's face showed a relaxed expression. She washed the wound with alcohol, applied iodine, and bandaged Christopher's wound with a bandage. After finishing all of this, she carefully helped General Christopher put on his coat, tidied up his things, and said with a smile, "Don't worry, Comrade Warrior. It's just a small piece of flesh scraped off by a bullet, not a bone. It should have grown well before getting married." "What do you mean, Comrade Health Officer?" Lin Hua couldn't help but wonder when she heard the female health worker say this. "What does this mean?" "I said the wound can heal before getting married," the female healthcare worker asked with a strange look at Lin Hua. "You don't even know this proverb, do you?" "I know, it's just that I didn't remember it for a moment," the female health worker reminded Lin Hua immediately. She remembered that there is indeed a saying in Russia that means the wound will heal quickly. He was afraid that the female health worker would see the flaw, so he quickly changed the topic and said, "By the way, I don't know how to call you." The female healthcare worker smiled and replied, "You can call me Assia." "Assia," said Lin Hua, who was the first beautiful woman he met after traveling through time. Lin Hua wanted to get close to her from the bottom of his heart. "Where are you from?" "I am from Moscow, a comrade corporal." Assia glanced at Lin Hua's collar and said, "My family lives in the instrument factory. Today, I happened to go home to visit my family, and when I met the militia who were going out, I thought there must be casualties on the battlefield, so I followed along." "Xiaoliaosha," Lin Hua turned his head and asked Xiaoliaosha as soon as Assia finished speaking, "What time is it now?" Xiaoliaosha took out his pocket watch and glanced at it, then said to him, "It's only 5 minutes left, it's 4 o'clock sharp." Lin Hua silently calculated in his heart that his time to intercept the German army would not exceed 40 minutes at most, while the instrument factory was several kilometers away from here. How could the militia come so timely? He was about to inquire about Assia when he suddenly heard a familiar voice above his head. "Corporal Comrade, can I talk to you?" Lin Hua looked up and saw a middle-aged man wearing a gray military coat without a collar, standing by the trench with hands behind his back. Lin Hua carefully examined the other party before recognizing him as the town's Soviet Commissioner Kochetov. Lin Hua quickly climbed out of the trench with his hands and feet, stood at attention in front of the other party, and then straightened his waist and raised his hand to salute. "Comrade People's Commissar. Sergeant Sokov reports to you that our class is carrying out a combat mission. I am waiting for your orders, please give instructions. Please rest a moment." Kochetov, with a smile on his face, said warmly to Lin Hua. "Comrade Sokov, we are all old acquaintances, so there's no need to be so polite. Alright, I'll call you Misha, and you'll call me Kochetov. Lin Hua heard the tone of the other party, which contained elements of flattery and friendship building. Although he was not sure why the other party was arrogant towards him, he still pushed the boat and said, I understand, Comrade Kochetov. Kochetov glanced at the militiamen who had already cleaned the battlefield, and then said to Lin Hua, Misha, it's too cold outside to be a place to talk. First, come with me to the Soviet office in town and have a cup of hot tea with honey to warm up your body. Upon hearing Kochetov's request to leave, Han Zhan looked at the remains of his comrades in the trench and said somewhat hesitantly, Comrade Kochetov, I want to bury our comrades first. Although Lin Hua politely declined Kochetov's offer, the other party stubbornly said, no, you must immediately follow me to the office. He was deeply afraid that Lin Hua and the others would not go, and even emphasized, you have reported the news of the German attack on Ximki town to General Artemiev, the commander of the Moscow garrison. He is currently on his way here. Upon learning that the garrison commander was going to Ximki town in person, Lin Hua dared not neglect and called for Xiaoliaosha and Christopher to follow Kochetov towards the Soviet office in the town. After bypassing the two-story building, Lin Hua saw more than 10 convertible trucks parked on the street behind him. Kochetov saw Lin Hua staring blankly at those trucks and explained with a smile, Misha, if it weren't for these trucks, the militia comrades wouldn't have been able to get here in such a short time. You know, the instrument factory is not close to town. Comrade Kochetov, Lin Hua knew that in real history, the militia of the instrument factory only launched an attack after the German army occupied the town for more than 2 hours, and today they were able to arrive in time before the German army rushed into the town. Since Kochetov was talking about the militia at the instrument factory at this moment, Lin Hua couldn't help but ask a question in his heart. Did you notify the instrument factory to send someone to support us? That's right, Misha, that's exactly what happened. Kochetov said with some pride, as soon as you started ringing outside the town, the soldiers you sent to report came. When I learned that the enemy was approaching aggressively, I immediately called the military representative of the instrument factory and asked him to send a militia company to support. In addition, I also called the garrison command to report the situation of the enemy to them. After finishing these words, he paused for a moment, later, blushing, he apologized to Lin Hua, I'm sorry, Misha. When you came to warn me, I shouldn't have suspected you. I'm sorry, please forgive me. Kochetov's proactive confession increased Lin Hua's favorability towards him. Lin Hua quickly waved his hands and said, Comrade Kochetov, as the leader of the town Soviet, what you did at that time was completely correct. It was because I was too reckless. As soon as the group returned to the office, General Artemiev, the commander of the garrison, walked in, along with several staff officers from the garrison headquarters. Upon seeing Artemiev enter, Kochetov quickly stood up to greet him and took the initiative to extend his hand, saying, Hello, Comrade General. Hello, Comrade Kochetov. Artemiev took Kochetov's hand and asked anxiously, How is the current situation? Have you blocked the enemy? Yes, Comrade General. Kochetov replied with a smile on his face, The invading enemy has been completely annihilated by us. Where are the soldiers who were the first to set up defenses outside the town? Artemiev asked, searching around the room with his eyes. When he saw Lin Hua and the others standing straight against the wall, he pointed with his hand and asked, Is that them? That's right, it's them. Kochetov finished speaking and gave a glance to Lin Hua, gesturing for him to come forward and greet General Artemiev. Lin Hua walked forward with a clear understanding, raised his hand to salute Artemiev, and loudly reported, General Comrade, Corporal Sokov reports to you that our class has successfully completed the task of blocking the German army. Sokov. After repeating Lin Hua's surname, Artemiev nodded and asked in a friendly tone, I wonder if your real name and father's name are. Lin Hua, who had been in Russia for more than 10 years, naturally knew that using his real name and father's name when addressing each other was a polite way. He quickly replied, Mikhail Mihailovich. Misha, after understanding Lin Hua's real name and father's name, Altamiev affectionately addressed the other person's nickname. You are good people. If you don't take timely and decisive action, the enemy will rush into our town. After speaking, he hugged Lin Hua, Xiaoliaosha, and Christopher excitedly. Thank you, thank you. After hugging the three, Altamiev turned around and said to a staff officer standing behind him, bring the medal. The staff officer quickly took out 3 red velvet boxes from his shoulder bag and handed them to Altamiev. Altamiev took the box, shook hands with Lin Hua and others one by one, and distributed the box with the medal in his hand to them. Seeing Lin Hua and others holding the metal box in their hands, Kochetov walked over with a ceramic teapot and said to Artemiev with a smile, wait a moment, Comrade General. Have you forgotten the tradition in our army? Right. If you don't say it, I almost forgot. Upon hearing Kochetov's words, Artemiev quickly nodded and then said to Lin Hua and others, put your medals in the teapot. Lin Hua quickly took out the medal from the box and put it into the teapot. Xiaoliaosha and Christopher also followed suit and took out the medals from the box and placed them in the teapot. Altamiev took a bottle of wine handed over by the staff and poured it into the teapot, explaining to them, according to the tradition of the Russian military, using wine to brew medals indicates that this is not the last one. After pouring half of the vodka from the teapot, Altamiev handed it to Lin Hua and said with a smile, drink it, Comrade Sokov. Lin Hua took the teapot, glanced at the vodka inside, grinned, lifted the teapot high, and said, for victory. After finishing, he brought the teapot close to his mouth, took a sip, and handed it to Xiaoliaosha next to him. After the 3 of them finished drinking vodka from the teapot, Altamiev retrieved the medals and returned them to Lin Hua. Then he said to Lin Hua, Comrade Sokov, after studying, we plan to send 2 more squads to the town of Ximki to form a special platoon. After research by the garrison command, it has been decided that you will take on the position of platoon leader and be promoted to the rank of sergeant. Chapter 6. Explanation of doubts. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After the award and promotion were completed, Altamiev looked around and said, except for Kochetov and Misha, let's all the comrades go out. After everyone left the office, Altamiev personally closed the door and walked up to Lin Hua with a puzzled expression. He looked at him and asked, Misha, according to the reports I received, 1 or 2 hours before the German army appeared in the town of Ximki, you had told Comrade Kochetov, a member of the town's Soviet committee, that the enemy's small troops were about to launch a surprise attack here and requested that the militia be sent to strengthen the defense to the north of the town. Is that the case? Lin Hua instinctively turned his head to look at Kochetov next to him and saw him nodding slightly, indicating that he had reported the matter to the garrison commander himself. Lin Hua withdrew his gaze and nodded at Altamiev, answering in a positive tone, yes, Comrade General, there is indeed such a thing. Since there is this matter, Altamiev continued, Comrade Sokov, could you tell me how you knew the enemy would launch a surprise attack? It was the German commander who personally told you, and it can be considered that you have the ability to predict. Upon hearing that Altamiev did not affectionately call himself by his nickname, but instead directly addressed himself by his surname, Lin Hua realized the seriousness of the problem. If he could not provide a satisfactory answer to the other party, perhaps he should go to the prison of the Ministry of Internal Affairs to report next. Lin Hua secretly felt fortunate in his heart. Fortunately, after the battle ended, he had figured out how to deal with his superiors. Otherwise, in the face of General Artemiev's questioning, he really didn't know how to explain. He couldn't say that he came from time travel, as that would definitely lead to being treated as a mental illness by the other party, either imprisoned or sent to a mental hospital. Comrade General, Lin Hua said with a serious expression, today's incident was purely coincidental. The German army got lost about 10 kilometers away from the town, and just as they were searching for their way like headless flies, they were discovered by a forest watcher. The forest watcher took a shortcut to the town to report and happened to meet me. Based on the report from the forest watcher, I determined that the German army's destination must be in Ximki town, so I reported it to Comrade People's Commissar. After listening to Lin Hua's explanation, Altamiev asked calmly, "Where is the forest watcher now?" Lin Hua shook his head and pretended to be helpless, saying, "I'm sorry, Comrade General." As soon as I heard this news, I left the person looking at Lin and ran directly to report to the comrade of the town people's committee. When I came out of the police station and went to look for the person looking at Lin again, I found that he had already disappeared. So, the reason you know that the Germans will attack the town of Ximki is because of the judgment made based on the intelligence provided by the forest watchers. Altamiev, walking back and forth in the room with his hands behind his back, stopped and looked at Lin Hua, asking, "Corporal Comrade, am I right?" "Exactly, Comrade General," Lin Hua quickly replied. Altamiev smiled and nodded, patting Lin Hua's shoulder twice with his hand, and said in approval, "You're good, Misha. But it's possible that you still have to find the forest ranger. If it weren't for him reporting, maybe the Germans would really have taken over the town of Ximki." Immediately after, he walked up to Kochetov and shook his head at his old friend, saying, "Comrade Kochetov, because you didn't believe Comrade Misha's report, you almost caused a big disaster. I hope you can learn from this lesson and not make such mistakes again in the future. Do you understand? Comrade General, please rest assured." Kochetov quickly glanced at Lin Hua next to him, feeling grateful in his heart. He said that if it weren't for his stubbornness and unauthorized establishment of defensive positions in the north of the town to block the German army, the town might have been occupied by the Germans. Even if he regained it in the shortest possible time, his own future would not be guaranteed. Regarding what Altamiev said, he quickly stated, "I promise not to make similar mistakes again in the future." Before waiting for Altamiev to say anything more, a staff member knocked on the door and entered the office. After bowing to Altamiev, he reported, "Comrade Commander, we have just received a notice that you should immediately rush to the Kremlin to attend an emergency meeting." "I know." Altamiev casually answered, shook hands with Kochetov first, and then walked up to Lin Hua, saying earnestly, "Misha, I'll leave the defense of Ximki town to you. If there are any difficulties, you can contact Comrade Kochetov. If he can't solve them, give me a call." Lin Hua was very clear in his heart that in a few days, the Soviet army would launch a comprehensive counterattack under Moscow, crushing the already exhausted German army. The town of Ximki that he was defending would be the safest place. Therefore, he straightened his back and said, "Don't worry, Comrade General. As long as we line up in the town of Ximki for a day, we will definitely not let a German enter this town." "Good job, Misha, I really didn't misread you." Altamiev slapped Lin Hua's arm twice with both hands and said with a smile, "Good luck, we'll meet again." Chapter 7. New Troops. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Lin Hua walked out of the town Soviet office and saw Xiaoliaosha, Christopher, and another soldier standing in front of a two-story building across the road chatting. He quickly waved to the other side and shouted, "Hi comrades." Upon hearing Lin Hua's shout, the three of them immediately stopped chatting. Xiaoliaosha walked over first and respectfully asked, "Misha, where are we going?" Lin Hua saw that it was already late at this moment and there was no need to stay outside in the icy and snowy weather. He said to Xiaoliaosha, "Go back to our residence, it's really too cold outside. The garrison is located in the church in the center of the town." Xiaoliaosha led the way up the church steps and opened the tightly closed wooden door. But he didn't go in immediately. Instead, he stood by the door and supported it, politely saying to Lin Hua, "Misha, please come first." Lin Hua walked to the door and saw a short corridor inside, with a wooden door at the end, and a small room on the left side of the corridor. Lin Hua was thinking in her heart, "Isn't the room we live in this small room?" I heard Xiaoliaosha say behind me, "Misha, what are you doing here? Hurry up and go in." Lin Hua quickly agreed and took a step into the hallway. He quickly glanced into the small room and found that there was only one chair inside, which should be a duty room or something. His place of residence was probably behind the wooden door in front of him. He walked over and opened the door. This time, he saw a large hall, with many single beds neatly arranged on one side of the hall. After Xiaoliaosha followed in, he asked Linhua, "Misha, there are only 4 people left in our class now. Do you think we will still arrange a guard tonight?" Regarding Xiaoliaosha's question, Linhua answered without hesitation, "It goes without saying that this is a time of war, and we cannot let our guard down at any time." Upon hearing Lin Hua's words, Xiaoliaosha turned to the warrior who followed and said, "Oleg, you'll be on guard tonight." Oleg was the soldier sent by Lin Hua to seek help from Kochetav before the battle began. At this moment, when he heard Xiaoliaosha's command, he quickly agreed and walked out of the church with a rifle on his back, going out to guard. Lin Hua found a wooden bed by the door and sat down. He looked up and said to Xiaoliaosha, "Xiaoliaosha, Comrade General told me that 2 classes of soldiers will come here tomorrow to report. Can we stay here?" "It should be possible," Xiaoliaosha nodded and said, "Besides this hall, there is also a basement. Not to mention 2 classes, even if both rows can stay." Due to a battle with the Germans in the afternoon, everyone was very tired. After chatting for a while, they all went to bed. Xiaoliaosha and Christopher quickly snored, while Lin Hua lay on the wooden bed, tossing and turning, unable to sleep for a long time. One reason is that the wooden bed lying on is uncomfortable to sleep on. The old furry ones are all tall and sturdy, but the bed they sleep on is narrow and short. Tall people sleep on it with their feet drooping on the ground. The main reason that made it difficult for him to fall asleep was the upcoming major counterattack. He thought impatiently, as the great counterattack begins, the front line will become farther and farther away from Moscow. As the garrison of Ximki town, I definitely don't have the opportunity to participate in the battle. Can I only carry out this monotonous and boring defensive task in this suburban town throughout the entire period of the Patriotic War? He didn't know when he fell asleep, so much so that Xiaoliaosha woke up in the middle of the night and went to switch shifts with Oleg outside, but he didn't hear it. But while he was sleeping soundly, he suddenly felt someone shaking his body non-stop, and at the same time, there was a voice anxiously shouting, "Misha, wake up! Misha, wake up!" Lin Hua struggled to open his eyes and saw clearly that the person shaking him was Xiaoliaosha. He then asked with some dissatisfaction, "Xiaoliaosha, what's up?" "The troops are here, Misha." Xiaoliaosha said excitedly, "The additional troops from our superiors have arrived." "Has the army arrived?" Lin Hua, who was originally a bit confused, sat up suddenly when he heard Xiaoliaosha say this. He put on his boots and asked, "Where are they?" "On the square outside the door." Lin Hua put on his boots and ran towards the outside of the church. He had just pulled the wooden door and had not even had time to go down the steps when he heard a command to stand at attention and rest. Then a sergeant stepped up the stairs and looked up and down at Lin Hua, who had just come out. He tentatively asked, "Are you Sergeant Sokov?" Upon hearing the other party call him by his military rank, Lin Hua remembered that he was still wearing the rank of corporal. He quickly smiled at the other party and explained, "That's right, I am Sokov. As for the rank of sergeant, I just obtained it yesterday and haven't had a chance to change to a new rank yet." After confirming that the person in front of him was Lin Hua, Sergeant raised his hand and saluted him, reporting, "Sergeant Comrade, Deputy Platoon Leader Sergeant Andrei reports to you that Special Squadrons 1 and 2 are stationed here. I am at your command, please give instructions. Please rest for a moment." Lin Hua finished speaking and walked to the front of the 3-lined queue. He turned his head and asked Andrei, who was following him, "Deputy Platoon Leader, how many people have you brought?" "There are a total of 20.9 people, including me," Andrei explained to Lin Hua. "Class 1 and Class 2 each have 10 people. Except for me and another female health worker, the remaining 7 soldiers are used to supplement the original guard team." Oh, that's it, I understand." Lin Hua finished speaking and turned his head to look back. He saw Xiaoliaosha and the three of them standing straight in front of the steps. He said to Andrea, Deputy Platoon Leader Comrade, if you don't object, I plan to appoint Xiaoliaosha to act as the Deputy Squad Leader. You are the highest commander here, Andrei said impassively after Lin Hua finished saying, you decide who will be appointed as the monitor. Seeing that Andrei did not object to his own opinion, Lin Hua loudly said to Xiaoliaosha, Comrade Xiaoliaosha, from now on, you will be the monitor of Class 3. Join the ranks. Upon hearing that he had been appointed as the class monitor, although he was only acting as an agent, Xiaoliaosha's face still showed a surprised expression. After agreeing loudly, he stood in the last row of the line with Christopher and Oleg, along with the newly added soldiers. Lin Hua stood at the front of the queue and loudly said to the soldiers, Comrades, we are an army and cannot be dispersed to the homes of ordinary people. Therefore, in the coming days, everyone will live here. Thank you, Liaosha. Xiaoliaosha heard Lin Hua calling out to him and quickly agreed loudly. He walked out of the queue and waited for Lin Hua to give him an order. Lin Hua instructed him, take the new soldiers to the church first and help them arrange accommodation. After Xiaoliaosha agreed and returned to the queue, Lin Hua said again, the deputy platoon leader and the class leaders of Class 1 and Class 2 should stay, and the rest should disband first. After the soldiers disbanded, they followed Xiaoliaosha and others towards the church, while the three people named by Lin Hua stayed behind. Andrei was about to introduce two squad leaders to Lin Hua when a female health worker carrying a medical bag ran over and asked Lin Hua, Comrade Squad Leader, what about me? Where should I live? Lin Hua glanced at the other party and was immediately surprised to find that the female health worker was actually Assia whom he had seen yesterday. However, he had some important matters to attend to at the moment and didn't have time to reminisce with the other party. So he said to Assia, Assia, go to the church to find Xiaoliaosha and ask him to arrange a place for you to stay. After Assia left, Andrei began to introduce the two squad leaders to Lin Hua. Comrade Platoon Leader, let me introduce them to you. This is Sergeant Grisa, the first squad leader, and this is Sergeant Gilia, the second squad leader. Hello comrades, Lin Hua shook hands with the two of them and warmly said, welcome to the town of Ximki. Chapter 8. General's Visit. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When shaking hands with the two class monitors, Lin Hua noticed the sadness in Grisa's eyes, as if something had happened recently that made him sad. I wanted to ask what was going on, but it's very impolite to ask such a private question during this meeting. Lin Hua made a gesture of invitation in the church and said to the three people, let's go up to the bell tower first. They walked through the hall of the church, followed the narrow spiral staircase, and arrived at the top bell tower. The structure of the clock tower consists of 4 pillars supporting an onion-shaped dome, with a rusty copper bell hanging from the top beam. The long rope that pulls the bell hangs down and sways in the wind. The view from the clock tower is broad, and standing here, you can have a panoramic view of the entire town of Ximki. Lin Hua pointed his hand towards the town below and said to Andrei, Comrade Deputy Platoon Leader, you see, this is the town of Ximki. In order to prevent the Germans from launching another surprise attack, we must strengthen our vigilance. Starting today, mobile outposts will be dispatched in all 4 directions of the town, in groups of 2, to conduct uninterrupted patrols. I understand. Andrei agreed and turned to Grisa, saying, First Squad Leader, your squad will be responsible for the first round of patrols. 4 hours later, comrades from the second squad will take over from you. After giving a ring salute to Lin Hua and Andrei, Grisa turned around and walked down the spiral staircase down the clock tower. After his figure disappeared, Lin Hua carefully asked Andrei, Comrade Deputy Platoon Leader, what's wrong with the first squad leader? I looked at his eyes and it was quite sad. But Andrei obviously didn't notice this either, but turned his gaze to Gilia on the side and said, Gilia, your relationship with Grisa is good. Do you know what happened? Before we set off, Gilia said somewhat awkwardly, someone told him that his mother and sister were killed in the German bombing. As soon as Elia spoke, everyone fell silent. After a long time, Andrei said in a dry voice, "You know, we have lost many people, after all, this is war. Comrade Deputy Platoon Leader, we will eventually recover the blood debt owed by the Germans from them." Lin Hua finished speaking and turned to Gelia, saying, "Gelia comrade, please convey to Grisa that the best way to resolve sadness is to work hard. Only by defeating the fascist aggressors can we avenge our deceased loved ones." Lin Hua saw that the work had been arranged properly and was about to go downstairs when he suddenly heard Elia say, "Comrade Platoon Leader, I have an idea." Lin Hua stopped and turned his head to ask Elia, "Comrade Elia, what are your thoughts?" "Let's hear it." Rhea pointed to the ground and said to Lin Hua, "Comrade Platoon Leader, the view from the clock tower is wide, and we can have a panoramic view of the entire town. If we arrange a sentry here to cooperate with mobile patrols on all sides, we must be able to better defend this town." Regarding Gelia's proposal, Lin Hua did not make an immediate decision, but smiled and asked Andrei, "Comrade Deputy Platoon Leader, do you think this is okay?" Seeing Lin Hua actively seeking his own opinion, Andrei was somewhat surprised. He frowned and thought for a while, then nodded with his back in his hand and said, "Platoon Leader comrade, I think Elia's suggestion is good. We should arrange a sentry here. If any abnormal situation is found, he can ring the bell in time to report to the police and let us prepare for battle as soon as possible." Lin Hua also considered setting up sentries on the clock tower yesterday, but at that time, there were too few soldiers under his command, and he only had 4 people. The wind is strong on the second clock tower, and the sentries are prone to freezing when they go on duty on such a cold day. However, with the addition of new troops, there should be no problem arranging sentries on the clock tower. Thinking of this, he reminded Andrei, "Comrade Deputy Platoon Leader, it's too cold on the clock tower. The sentinels on duty change their posts every half hour to avoid being frozen out. Do you understand?" "Understood." Andrei quickly replied, "I will arrange for a group of 3 people to take turns coming up to duty." Just as the 3 of them were about to go downstairs, the last person walking in the room, Gelia, shouted again, "Comrade Platoon Leader, it seems that a few people are coming towards us." Lin Hua, who had already walked down the spiral staircase for a few steps, heard the voice of Gelia and quickly walked back, asking, "Where is it?" "Over there." Zelia pointed to the east and said, "Comrade Platoon Leader, you see, a total of 5 people have come. 3 soldiers and 1 police officer, and another person is wearing an unlicensed military coat, perhaps a militia." Lin Hua followed the direction pointed by Elia and indeed saw several people slowly walking towards the church on the snowy street. He gazed intently and quickly saw that the ordinary person walking on the far left without any rank markings on his military coat was the Soviet Commissar Kochetov. The police officer walking beside him is Lieutenant Fei Ding, the director of the police station. The other 3 soldiers, led by a commander, had 3 golden stars embedded in their bright red diamond collar, and were actually a general. The 2 soldiers following behind him should be his guards. What's going on here? How could a lieutenant appear here? In order to figure out what was going on, Lin Hua quickly led Andrei and the others down the clock tower, calling the soldiers who were staying in the church outside the door and asking everyone to line up to welcome the upcoming general. After waiting for the general accompanied by Kochetov to approach, Lin Hua quickly stepped forward and saluted, "Comrade General, Sokov, the platoon leader of the Ximki Special Defense Platoon, reports to you. Welcome to our place for inspection." The general raised his hand to salute, and Yu read a book www.uukangshu.net and said, "Take a break." Then he turned his head and asked Kochetov beside him, "Comrade Kochetov, since he is the platoon leader of the garrison, why is he still holding the rank of corporal?" "Comrade General," Kochetov explained with a smile, "yesterday General Artemiev, the commander of the garrison, personally appointed him as the newly established platoon leader and promoted him to the rank of sergeant. Due to time constraints, he may not have had the chance to change his rank symbol yet." Kochetov turned his head to look at Lin Hua and said to him, "Misha, you may not know this general yet." Let me introduce him to you. He is Lieutenant General Rokossovsky, the commander of the 16th Army Group, who just passed by from Moscow after a meeting. Because I heard about your story, I came specifically to see you. Upon learning that the tall and handsome middle-aged general in front of him was one of the outstanding generals of the Soviet Union during the Patriotic War. Along with Zhukov and Konyev, he was known as one of the three carriages of the Soviet Army. He remained calm and composed, and made remarkable achievements in times of adversity during the war. He was hailed as a hero of adversity by later generations. Lin Hua's blood surged on his face. He once again raised his hand and saluted, saying in a voice that was hoarse due to excitement, "Hello, General Rokossovsky. On behalf of all the soldiers of the garrison, I welcome your arrival." Rokossovsky and Lin Hua shook hands and said in a friendly tone, "Hello, Comrade Sokov. I heard Kochetov mention your story, so I came here to take a look. I wanted to see what the commander with a few new recruits was like, blocking over 20 German soldiers armed to the teeth." Upon hearing Rokossovsky's praise of himself, Lin Hua couldn't help but feel a bit flattered. He wanted to say a few words, but in a hurry, he didn't know how to start, so he could only grin foolishly. Chapter 9. Solicitation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Rokossovsky raised his head and squinted his eyes as he looked at the clock tower above the church, seemingly casually saying, "When I just came over, I saw a few people on the clock tower, and one of them was you, right?" "Yes, Comrade General," Lin Hua hurriedly replied, "I was arranging defense matters up there at that time." Lin Hua's words aroused Rokossovsky's curiosity. He smiled and said, "Comrade Sokov, take me up and take a look." After he finished speaking, he took a step towards the church. As soon as he walked up the steps, he seemed to remember something. He stopped and said to Kochetov and his guard, "The space on the clock tower is too small to accommodate too many people. You stay here, Comrade Sokov, and I can go up." Lin Hua led Rokossovsky into the church and climbed the clock tower along the spiral staircase. Rokossovsky looked around and nodded, sighing, "Standing here, the whole town is in view. If a guard is placed here, any wind or grass in the town can be detected in a timely manner. And," he added, gripping the swaying clock rope with his hand, "you can also sound an alarm in time through this copper bell." "Comrade General, what you said is very accurate." Lin Hua and Rokossovsky finished speaking and quickly continued, "In addition to setting up a guard here to observe the movements of the whole town, we will also send a group of 2 people's patrol posts on the southeast, northwest, and 4 sides of the town." Rokossovsky looked to the north of the town and asked, "Comrade Sokov, you were there yesterday, fighting against the ambush enemy, weren't you?" "That's right, Comrade General." "That's right there," Lin Hua nodded and said. "Based on my judgment, the German army will definitely charge into the town from there, so I took my comrades from the garrison to build a defense to the north of the town." "Comrade Sokov," Rokossovsky said to Lin Hua with a sideways face, "you only have 10 people, but you have blocked the attack of more than 20 German soldiers. It's really remarkable. You should know that this small unit that came for the surprise attack is a reconnaissance battalion belonging to the German 258th Infantry Division, with higher combat effectiveness than ordinary German soldiers, but they haven't gained any advantage in front of you." Lin Hua looked at the faint black smoke rising from the north and understood in his heart that it was a unit of the 16th Army Group, engaged in a fierce battle with the German army occupying Sun Mountain City, attempting to drive the enemy away from the city. He sighed and said, "Comrade General, compared to the battle your troops fought in Sun Mountain City, yesterday's battle was more like a children's play." Rokossovsky heard Lin Hua mention Sun Mountain City and smiled at him, saying, "I didn't expect you to know the battles that took place in Sun Mountain City." Lin Hua naturally wouldn't tell Rokossovsky that he came through time travel, and everything that has happened so far is already history for him. In order to avoid arousing suspicion from Rokossovsky, he deliberately pretended to be very surprised and said, "General, it's not difficult to know this. You should know that our squad has been stationed in this town for a long time, and we often see wounded soldiers brought back from the past, as well as troops and various weapons and equipment from the city. It's easy to know where the battle is happening. Comrade Sokov, Rokossovsky asked with great interest after Lin Hua finished speaking, do you think the Germans will rush into Moscow? This is impossible, Comrade General. Lin Hua and Rokossovsky replied decisively as soon as they finished speaking, although the Germans are still constantly attacking and seem to have achieved some results, their strength has been exhausted. As long as we launch a large-scale counterattack, we can easily defeat them and drive them far away from Moscow. After Lin Hua finished speaking, he saw a surprised expression on Rokossovsky's face. Then he heard the other person say, I didn't expect you to have so much confidence in us defending Moscow. Comrade Sokov, I really need a grassroots commander with combat experience. Are you interested in coming to my unit? Perhaps to persuade Lin Hua, he added, I can make you a company commander. Upon hearing Rokossovsky's words, Lin Hua felt as if he was dreaming. When I first arrived in this world yesterday, I was just a small class. In the evening, he was appointed as the platoon leader by the Moscow garrison commander Ultimev. Unexpectedly, Rokossovsky extended an olive branch to himself again, and when he made a move, he became a platoon leader. Seeing Rokossovsky's sincerity, Lin Hua almost agreed. However, he thought about it and realized that he had just been promoted yesterday. Today, he followed Rokossovsky and would leave a bad impression in General Ultimev's mind. Seeing Lin Hua hesitating to speak, Rokossovsky continued, if you agree, I will immediately call General Artemyev and transfer you to my unit. General Artemyev and I are old friends, and I believe he will still give me face. Lin Hua had already made a decision in his heart. As soon as Rokossovsky finished speaking, he replied, General, thank you for your kindness. As the platoon leader of the garrison, my current task is to guard the town of Ximki well and ensure that the enemy does not rush into Moscow from here. I understand your kindness. Fortunately, Rokossovsky was a magnanimous person. After listening to Lin Hua's answer, although he felt a bit regretful in his heart, he still understood and said, okay, Comrade Sokov, I respect your choice. But the suggestion I just made, I still hope you can carefully consider it. Comrade General, Lin Hua understood very well in his heart. Although his current task is to defend Ximki town, with the development of the war situation, he will eventually be transferred to other areas for combat. Instead of following those commanders who do not understand the details, it is better to first establish a good relationship with Rokossovsky, who has a promising future, so that we can make achievements with him in the future. Therefore, he said tactfully, I estimate that as long as the Germans are driven away by our army near Moscow and the town of Ximki is no longer under German threat, our garrison will be transferred to another area. I hope you can accept us there. After receiving Lin Hua's definite answer, Rokossovsky smiled and nodded, then said to himself, Comrade Sokov, let's go down first. It's really too cold upstairs. Chapter 10. Female Health Worker Assia. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In Lin Hua's eyes, his old friend Xiaoliaosha had some talent as a logistics minister. Seeing that the new soldier didn't have a bed to sleep on, he consulted Lin Hua and took people to the forest outside the town to chop down trees. He then transported the wood back and piled it up outside the church to start building a new bed. Busy until evening, the church hall was already tidy, with newly made beds arranged in an orderly formation. Although the beds didn't look good and didn't even peel off the bark outside, they were particularly sturdy. Soldiers slept on them, at least they didn't have to worry about the bed collapsing when they flipped over. As for the only female soldier in the platoon, Assia, she was also arranged by Xiaoliaosha in the small room at the entrance. This arrangement not only avoids the soldiers harassing her, at the same time, anyone who feels uncomfortable can also find the health worker as soon as possible. On the day before the start of the Moscow counterattack, Lin Hua stood on the clock tower, looking at the nearby avenue. On either side of the road were soldiers lined up in neat rows, while in the middle were tanks, trucks loaded with ammunition or soldiers, and artillery carts pulling artillery. On duty on the clock tower was the soldier Oleg, who also saw the troops in the distance that could not be seen at all, heading north along a snowy road. He couldn't help but ask Lin Hua curiously, "Comrade platoon leader, with so many troops advancing northward, it seems that our army is preparing for a counterattack, right?" Lin Hua understood in his heart that in just over 10 hours, the Soviet army would launch a comprehensive counterattack against the German army. However, in the current situation, this news is only known to officers at or above the regimental level. He didn't answer Oleg's question, but turned around and walked down the spiral staircase down the clock tower. Just as he opened the wooden door at the entrance and was about to go out to relax, he heard a voice coming from beside him. "Comrade platoon leader, where are you going?" Lin Hua turned his head and saw the female health worker Assia standing at the door of the cabin, looking at him curiously. He grinned at the other person and said, "I plan to go out for a walk." After hearing Lin Hua finish speaking, Assia naturally asked, "Can I come with you?" "Let's go," Lin Huajing begged when he saw a beautiful woman like Assia willing to accompany him for a walk. He shook his head and readily agreed, "Let's go out for a walk together." After walking side by side on the street for a distance, Assia suddenly spoke up and asked, "Comrade platoon leader, where are you from?" Lin Hua learned a lot about Misha from his military certificate, so when he heard Assia ask, he smiled and replied, "I'm from Moscow." "Are you also from Moscow?" Assia's face showed a surprised expression. "I am also from Moscow, and I live in the instrument factory to the east." "I know, you told me before when we first met." As the other person started, it became natural for the conversation to continue. "My family lives in Liangzhan district, east of Moscow." "Comrade platoon leader, was that your first time participating in the battle?" asked Assia. "That's right, it was my first time participating in a battle that day." Lin Hua couldn't help but feel a little scared when he recalled the bullets that whizzed past his head that day. He turned his face to look at the beautiful and charming female health worker and said, "If it weren't for the militia from the instrument factory arriving in time that day, we might have let the enemy charge into the town." The two of them walked ahead for a while, and Assia suddenly asked, "Are you married?" "No," Lin Hua shook his head and said, "If the war doesn't break out, I will find a beautiful girlfriend to marry after finishing college." Upon hearing Lin Hua say that she was not married and didn't even have a girlfriend, Assia became happy. She naturally took Lin Hua's hand and asked softly, "Comrade platoon leader, what major did you study in college?" Lin Hua did not expect that Assia would suddenly grab her arm, a strange feeling that he had never experienced in his life, like thunder and lightning sweeping past him. Especially the softest part of Axia's chest, occasionally rubbing her arms, made Lin Hua feel a bit flustered. He pondered hard in his mind, and it was said that the Misha he had replaced was also a college student, but he really didn't know what major he was studying in school. In order to divert Assia's attention, he quickly changed the topic and said, "Assia, don't always call me platoon leader. It sounds awkward to hear like this. You should still call me Misha, just like Xiaoliaosha. Also, let's use you to refer to each other." Assia followed Lin Hua's advice with ease, and immediately agreed. Like an old friend for many years, she began using you to refer to Lin Hua. "Misha, you haven't mentioned what major you studied in college yet." "Assia, what about you?" Lin Hua didn't return to the question raised by Assia, but instead asked, "What major did you study in school?" "I am a student from a medical university," Assia said as she held Lin Hua's hand and continued walking. "I was supposed to be promoted to second grade in September this year, but the war broke out. My classmates and I joined the military and were assigned to work as a health worker in the army." "Are you a student of a medical university?" Lin Hua couldn't help but wonder when he heard that Assia was actually a student of a medical university. Medical university students should go to work as military doctors. Why did they make you a health worker? "I only studied medicine in college for a year and have never interned at any hospital. I only have theoretical knowledge and no clinical experience, said Assia with a pout. So when I joined the army, my superiors were assigned to work as health workers in the health company. Upon hearing this, Lin Hua raised his right hand and gently patted the jade hand that Assia was holding onto his left arm, comforting her by saying, Assia, don't worry, I believe one day you can also become a military doctor. As they were talking, two soldiers carrying rifles walked towards them, who were mobile outposts deployed in this direction. Seeing Lin Hua approaching, the two quickly raised their hands and saluted him. Assia saw her intimate behavior with Lin Hua and was caught by two patrolling soldiers. She hurriedly withdrew from Lin Hua's arm with a gentle, almost imperceptible movement. After Lin Hua stopped and raised his hand to salute, he asked the two soldiers, "How is the situation here?" "Everything is normal, comrade platoon leader." The soldier closest to Lin Hua quickly glanced at Assia next to him and then replied, "Except for occasional residents of the town walking on the street, no strangers were found."